jmyrex, ultrawest.com. It's been a minute. I always say that, but I'm back. Yeah, I just wanted to chop it up with the community for a little bit. Um, you know, um, not going to talk about everything that's been going on personally for the last, year or so, but it's been a, very interesting ride, and I'm just blessed to, be here still, and I'm thankful to the Most High that He's seen me and my family through everything that's been going on for this past year. But I wanted to just connect with the people, you know what I'm saying? So I appreciate everybody that's been, subscribing to the channel, commenting on, the channel and whatnot, and just showing love. And, I wanted to just give back and show love to the community as well. So I appreciate y'all. Let me know if y'all can't hear me, if there's any problems with the audio. As always, please inform me. Don't have me out here slipping. But yeah, I want to get into it, man. 2021 has been a very interesting year for music producers. Thanks for confirming that the audio is good. I'm always doing, always trying different little setups here. So this is kind of a little bit more of a lo-fi setup for me, but hopefully it's fine for y'all. But yeah, 2021 has been pretty interesting year for music production, especially on the tools. The tools has been, I can't say nothing short of amazing, to be honest. All the things that we have access to as music producers. I'm sure a lot of people that follow my channel are hip to some of the new stuff that's been recently announced, like the SP404 MK2, and obviously, Akai's been coming with it with their latest firmware updates to the Force, but also to the MPC line. So it's been a lot of great stuff come out this year, or be released to the public this year. I'm interested to know what you guys are, excited about, what you guys are using. I can tell you a little bit about what I've been using, some of the stuff that I've been doing workflow-wise and whatnot. But yeah, I also could provide some thoughts on some of the new stuff if you're interested. I'm not really a SP404 user, and I don't have any of the new MPCs, so I can't really speak hands-on. I'm sure if you need a hands-on demonstration, there's plenty of channels that have that. I can only provide just kind of insights based upon my experience with different tools and whatnot. So I know it'll come up. So yeah, if you have questions about some of that stuff, like specifically, I don't own one. I don't own any of those units. But I was pretty interested in the announcement of the SP404. And I'll tell you why. So as I said, I'm not really a SP404 user per se. I've had a lot of interactions with them over the years, as far as like just understanding the impact that it's had on the culture, especially coming from LA, being an LA-based artist and interacting with different LA-based artists, from like, the low-end theory crowd, and, different beat scene oriented production crews and whatnot. That SP404 has been a staple. So it's very interesting to see that Roland came out with followed up with something that really met all of the demands of the community. I think that was the most amazing part of that announcement with the SP404 MK2, is that the feature set really hit all of the pain points of the community. So it's exciting for me. So like I said, I don't use an SP404, but what you may not know is that my wife dabbles into music production a little bit, so she has a little bit of a setup too, and I help her out to try to get things going, and her setup is different from mine. Her setup, I would say, is more like what you would see on some of the Dawless channels that are on YouTube. So, she has things like a SP404. She has the SX model of the 404, and also Novation Circuit, and those are kind of like the staples of her setup. And so I've gotten familiarity with the 404 also by helping her out with it, and helping her to navigate it. So it's a very interesting device, but especially for my wife, since she's not a veteran music producer at all. She's very much at the beginning stages of like messing around with music production. The 404 is a challenging device for someone that has used a computer for a long time, I would say. Especially the old school, workflow that the 404 offers with respect to sample editing. The 404 traditionally was very much a device that you had to use your ears to, if you wanted to chop something. I think a lot of the approach actually comes from more of a DJ perspective. I think the original idea or positioning of that 404 device was really focused for providing a DJ with a more affordable form factor version of like an instant replay, or instant replay was an old school device that used to get used a lot for live performances, for like especially for big concerts and whatnot. Um, the instant replay is essentially a sampler, but it's a sampler that has a lot more professional inputs and output. It has a very long sample time, so to speak, and yeah, it's really designed to help you to trigger. You can run full tracks like backing tracks on an instant replay. You can trigger individual one-shot sounds. So it was an aid, or really like a digital device that helped people to produce live performances. And this was many years ago. This is before people started really bringing whole Ableton and Pro Tools rigs up on the stage. So this was a alternative. So the 404 kind of fit into that domain, but for a DJ, where you could have tracks or loops playing back as a DJ. You could do one-shot triggers and whatnot, and it was a very simplistic sampler that the community, just in the spirit of hip hop, I think hip hop especially always finds ways to take stuff that wasn't originally made for hip hop specifically and turn it into a device that can be used to create music, create songs. And I think that's what the community started to do, was to leverage the very basic tools that that device provided, and use that in a way that allowed them to create complex sounding music. But it took a lot of skill. I think a lot of the editing comes from like the DJ domain. Like it's kind of focused on ideas like cueing and looping and whatnot, things that a DJ could potentially do on the fly if they were a skilled DJ. But I think if you're coming from the computer, especially if my wife had tinkered around with Reason before, so she kind of knew that world. But this whole hardware thing, she didn't really know about it, besides seeing me get stuff and looking at, oh, you got a lot of lot of stuff over there. But for her, that SP404 was is a challenge because you don't have a screen, you don't have all the slicing tools and all the modern functionality on the at least on the SX. But that MK2 really transformed that paradigm and brought us to the modern day where you have waveform display and you have the what they call the lazy chop and all that kind of stuff, right? So I think that is a device that is going to help a lot more people get into music production at a really low price point without the need of a expensive computer. Because I think the reality of music production still, even though that there's a lot of really inexpensive software and there's a lot of even inexpensive hardware that's been emerging, music production for a long time was still reserved for those that had means, those that had access to a decent computer. I mean, with the advent of VSTs and DAWs and everything else that comes with that domain, to really get the most out of VSTs and to get the most out of virtual instruments in general, and just plugins in general, it requires you to have a pretty solid computer. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that later on because there's some interesting developments in that I want to talk about and get y'all opinion on as well. But and for any of y'all that are wondering, I'm gonna get to the chat room. If y'all haven't been in the producer function, usually the producer function is structured where I give a little bit of insights and talk for maybe about 20, 30 minutes, and then we get to the chat room. So I'm gonna get to y'all. Don't worry, I'm not ignoring y'all. I see everybody in there. What's up to everybody that's already joining? But that's just how the format is of this particular show. So don't worry, I'm not ignoring you. I can see the chat right here. So, but yeah, music production kind of was reserved for, people that had means, regardless of all the new technology that has been coming out. So I think, there's been people that have made some really great stuff with, maybe not the best of equipment. So, there's definitely an emergence of music producers that came up maybe using cheaper PC, Windows computers with FL Studio and whatnot, and made that work and created something that was palatable and viable commercially for that matter. But I would say, the more powerful, bigger productions, especially within the pop domain, and anything that's outside of like what you would call an urban music genre, really required a pretty powerful computer to access a lot of the tools and the workflows that modern computing provides. And I think with the SP404, with that price point of $500, that opens up the door for a lot of people to have access to some very powerful music production tools for, less than everything else that's on the market for the most part. Everything that's competitive would, be a couple $100 more still. And, for those that don't have access to a powerful computer, this is a great opportunity for them to have something that can do a lot. Looking at the SP404, looking at the chopping abilities, the fact that they've added this, chromatic sampling now or chromatic playback ability, that's stuff that, seems to still get reserved for the big boy samplers. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of samplers still on the market that even do chromatic sampling until you start paying, $800 plus. I'm familiar with the Novation circuit as well. What's going on, CX? I see you. I'm familiar with the circuit as well because my wife uses the circuit. So, I'm familiar with the new line of circuit, like the rhythm and the tracks or whatever. And, even with the new circuit sampler, it does have slicing capabilities and whatnot, but it doesn't have a screen. So I think for someone that, again, is used to using a phone, a computer, iPad, or whatever, um, that circuit is still a bit challenging, and it's not that cheap. I mean, considering that it has no screen for it's about about $400. I think what Roland is doing with this SP404 MK2 is amazing. So I definitely tip my hat to them because it's the reality is that's probably one of the most powerful standalone hardware samplers that we've seen come out in quite some time, let alone all the effects and everything else that the SP404 is widely known for. I think that the SP404 is going to help to democratize music a bit more. And I'm a fan of that. I'm definitely not one I'm not a gatekeeper in music production. I think music production should be accessible to people that have an interest, for people that have a desire to expand their music listening experience even. Because I think for a lot of us, music production is really an extension of our music listening experience, especially when you start looking at the mechanics of sampling and, those that are into sampling and scratching and whatnot. That's really an extension of how we're listening to music. I think, sampling kind of is a natural progression from listening to a record and getting inspired by something you're hearing and wanting to be able to touch or grab that tactile in a tactile way and manipulate the sound and make it, do stuff that you think it could do. That's what DJing gets into. DJing is an extended part of our listening experience. So I think anyone that's got a desire to get into music production should be able to. And that was one of the reasons why I've been a heavy proponent of the iOS platform for music production, because I think that that's another gateway for people to get interested and value music again and really want to be a part of that experience. I don't think that, obviously we know that iOS and some of these, lower entry level tools, they have their limits, but I think it's a great exploration tool. It's a great way to get people listening to music differently. And I think that's important for the future of music in general, because we kind of got into a strange place with music where a lot of people don't have an interactive listening experience anymore with music. What's been happening since we got, these smartphones and, even before really the smartphones, it really kind of just started with the transition to the iPods and, digital downloads and, MP3 only and going away from physical media. And then, now into this full-on streaming domain, a lot of people don't really have an interactive music listening experience anymore. They're not touching the music. It's kind of just a background thing for them. So, my hope is that with the tools getting less expensive, it will help people to have another reason to want to get up close and personal with music again, even if it's like starting with sample packs and loop libraries and things of that nature that helps them to, pick apart music and listen to music differently. And, in some cases, some people that, find these music production tools may venture off into DJing because they can understand DJing even more through these music production tools that are available to them. And then once they start DJing, then if you DJ, you want to have music to play when you DJ, and that helps you to start becoming a music consumer again, because I think DJs are, still one of the top actual music consumers out there, considering the fact that they actually buy music or usually are a part of a record pool or buy music to help them to DJ. So they're still actively consuming and looking for music. And I think that they are a very important part of keeping music alive in general. So these discovery tools that help people to get into music and value music more ultimately will, over time, make music much more of a value. And I think at some point it will create a bit more relevance for released music, and not make it such a background or kind of like a peripheral thing that people just are passively consuming. Because I think that's the challenge with streaming, is that a lot of streaming behavior is facilitating a passive music listening experience. Apple just made several announcements, and I'm gonna get into that in a little bit. But Apple just made several announcements, but one of their big announcements on the 18th was really focused around music. And it was really about their approach to music and engaging the audience of listeners for music. And they're going full steam ahead on more playlisting as a strategy. I think playlisting has its pros and cons. Playlisting can be a good thing to help people get exposure to music, but I think it's a very passive way of getting exposure to music. So I have my reservations around a playlist first concept with respect to streaming, because playlisting ultimately doesn't require the listener to do any real searching to find artists. It doesn't really help the listener to necessarily even care what the artist is, because if it's just part of a vibe in a playlist, then it kind of becomes background. I think it's important for there to be with music in general, music concept here, with music in general, it's important to have dynamics over time. And I think one of the challenges fundamentally with the playlist is that playlists are very much built on the idea of a mood or a vibe. And it's trying to maintain a pretty consistent vibe between different songs. So, there's different themes in playlists, like, oh, this is a theme for cleaning. This is a, theme for studying. This is a thing for workout. And I think the challenge is when we start getting too heavy into vibe-based playlists, what tends to happen is you lack dynamics in the listening experience over time, because all of it is kind of in the same pocket, same tempo, same kind of frequency representation, all these things that don't help us to get dynamics or contrast. And I think contrast is important when we start talking about emotionally grabbing someone and making the music, like one song, stick out versus another. I think it's very important for that contrast and those dynamics to happen. So, when we used to listen to terrestrial radio, they played, even if you were on like an urban station, there was still a very large variety of music being played. So you had dynamics. So, you might like one song a lot, and then the next song comes on, it's like, okay, I don't necessarily like that song as much. I might even turn it down a little bit, but the dynamics kind of created this priority for the music. So you could start to make decisions on what you like based upon how the dynamics hit you and affected you as you were listening. And I think that's the challenge with the playlist, is that you don't get dynamics. You don't get these, highs and lows. The playlist can be very, monotone to a degree because it is about a vibe and it's about a specific genre, and the genres can get very narrow. And I think ultimately for music listeners to actually be like, man, what was that song though? Dynamics are important. I think that's an important mechanism that has to be implemented when we're listening to music so that certain songs can actually shine and can really reach us within a certain moment of time. And I think that's the kind of stuff that helps us to, be like, dang, what was that song? Let me find that song. And I think that's where I would love to have seen Apple get a little bit more invested into, is helping people to really discover music, but not so much just pigeonholing them into a specific sound, but helping them to get different dynamics and also giving them the tools to do the research within their applications to find out more about different artists or different, relationships between artists, producers, and other record labels for that matter. And I think there's not enough of that going on. So I know it seems like kind of like all over the place, but it's all connected, because what I'm talking about is really getting people back into actively listening to music. And I think music production, again, is a part of really an active music listening experience. We all start off as listeners first, and then we start getting tools to help us to dial in certain sounds that we may have already heard, or we get certain tools that help us to use different sounds that we would like to hear within our music listening experience ultimately. So this is all about music listening. These tools that we have now should all help us to create more music to listen to ultimately. And it doesn't have to be that it's music that is being broadcast to the world. It could be music that is just simply being listened to and enjoyed in your own house. I make plenty of music that's just enjoyed in my house because, I just love music. It's not really just about me giving the music out for, everyone to listen to. And it's not really about me chasing fame or notoriety for that matter from the music that I put out. But some stuff is just for me because that's how I feel and I just want to listen to it. But, these tools are an extension of what we listen to, but it's also an extension of what we're interested in listening to. So I think going back to the 404, I know that felt like, man, you went way out there. But going back to the 404 is a great device to help people that are just casual listeners be able to plug up a phone and hook it up to a 404, and then they can extend their music listening experience by putting on one of those effects from the 404, grabbing the sound that's coming through the external input and putting, a stutter or a delay or, a lo-fi or isolator or something like that on the signal. And then all of a sudden, I went from listening to one of my favorite songs to manipulating one of my favorite songs on the fly. And I think that's the power of something like a SP404, is that it's very much close. It's close to the listening experience. It's not so far into this whole, like, I have to know how to play everything in order to use this device, even though it has the depth to get me to actually creating the music as well. But a device like a 404 is it sits in between music production and music listening. So it allows us to maybe with some tactile, I can't even say that right now. With some tactile nature, we can actually grab the music that we're listening to and manipulate it. That's what I'm trying to get at. But that's my thoughts on the 404. I wanted to get that out because I know people are going to ask me, because that's kind of been like the big hot topic. The other hot topic that I wanted to talk about is actually the other Apple announcement, which is the new M1 Macbook Pro. So I have been waiting for that announcement for quite some time because As I mentioned earlier, music production, if you're using, modern music production workflow with VSTs and, audio interfaces and, even these integrated controllers, you need a computer. I mean, I think the reality is you need a strong computer to use the computer as a full-on studio replacement. And I'm getting to a point where it's time. It's time for an update on my computer. So I've been waiting. With the M1 announcements, it had me, waiting even more because I was like, okay, well, we got the Mac Mini and we got the MacBook Air M1, and I've been looking at, the benchmarking and the different tests that people have done and reviews, and it's impressive. I think for me, the M1 feels like a no-brainer, and I can't wait to get into the M1. But now that there's the MacBook Pro, I'm really curious to see how that performs. And I see people already saying like, hold on, wait. I definitely preach that as well because I'm slow to update or upgrade a system. And even with if I do end up getting a M1 system, I will definitely transition to it. It won't be like a full stop where it's like, well, this computer that I'm currently on is completely taken out. I use a switcher in my setup, so I can switch between different systems right now. So my main music production rig is it is a 2012 Mac Pro. So it's old. It's a quad core Mac Pro. The reason I still use the Mac Pro primarily was because of the connectivity. That's always been the issue for me because I'm the one type of guy that likes to connect a lot of stuff, as you can tell. Like if you watch this channel, I'm always trying to connect different stuff to different things and see how it works. And the Mac Pro was still a device that allowed me to connect and interface the types of equipment that I wanted to without having to use a lot of adapters and things. And that was something that Apple got into heavy that was definitely a turnoff for me because, if you've used some of the latest MacBook Pros and whatnot that only have the USB-C and, they don't have the HDMI dedicated. They don't have USB-A ports. There's, it becomes a hassle to connect everything and make it work the way you need it to work, especially if you're dealing with a lot of different interfaces. And for me, I still run an Apollo quad. That is a Thunderbolt device, but I'm using it on FireWire right now because my old Mac Pro is a FireWire 800 device. I also use, I have some USB 3.0 devices that are connected. So there's a lot of USB 3.0 and, there are a lot of that is using USB-A protocol. So I have a lot of devices that I have to consider in my studio. So the transition won't be like a direct transition. It definitely would be a slow transition, starting with, getting Logic up and then getting all my software plugins up and then figuring out which audio interface I really want to use with that system. And then, going from there. And then, once I get to a comfort level where I feel like everything works, then I may then phase out the Mac Pro, but it would be a process for sure. So I'm aware, but you have to do these things, you have to do these things within a system. You have to understand that development takes time. A lot of times the manufacturers don't have that much of a lead time before a new protocol or new operating system is released. And, it requires a lot of heavy lifting for certain companies to get everything together. So, I know that firsthand working with Native Instruments. It's a lot of moving parts. So I'm playing it. I've always played it safe. I've always had a test system that I could use to test out new stuff, and it's just time for me to upgrade my main system. And yeah, the MacBook Pro M1 version now is interesting to me because it kind of returns back to some of the old school concept around connectivity, at least having some dedicated ports. So I think that is a interesting addition. It's a welcome addition for me because I think that Apple was a little bit, they jumped the gun a little too much on this kind of idealistic world that they thought we were going to live in, where we were going to have everything use one protocol. And I love the thought, I love the thought that we can simplify the world and have one protocol for everything. But life doesn't work like that. And that's not the world we live in. There's so many different protocols. There's so many different systems out there. I think it's unrealistic to expect every manufacturer to immediately abandon existing protocols like USB-A and USB 3.0 for that matter, and move to USB-C only. Especially considering some of the history around like these different protocols and how quickly they can be abandoned. Obviously, even if you were in the Apple domain, you saw how quickly we went from that 30 pin adapter for iOS to the Lightning adapter. And there's been plenty of companies that we saw got burned by creating devices that had this 30 pin connection only for Apple to say, oh no, we've got a faster, better connection. It's this Lightning connection. So I think that the reality is a lot of companies are playing it safe. Like if USB-A is still valid, yeah, that's a safe bet for them. Why change it? So I think the world we live in just is not really, they're not wrapped around, wrapped around Apple's finger, you know what I'm saying? So it's not going to be a situation where everything moves when they move. And I think that was the misstep or the lack of awareness that Apple had about reality. And I think now with this M1 MacBook Pro having some dedicated ports, a dedicated HDMI, dedicated USB-A, also having still the Thunderbolt or the USB-C. It's a more robust system. It seems like it could serve one better as a hub, because that's how my system is. My system is a hub for my computer, is a hub for my studio. It is the place where everything is connected. It's the place where everything is manipulated, and the connectivity is important. So the MacBook Pro is interesting to me. I'm not 100% sold on it. I think that it looks like it's a very powerful system, so I'm very interested. I'll be looking out for reviews and benchmarks and all that, but I'm also, interested in what has been done with the Mac Mini already. I think the Mac Mini is already in a pretty good place as far as connectivity and power is concerned. It's not the most powerful system now by today's standards, since they have the M1 Pro now, but the reality is, for me personally, even if I went to a Mac Mini, it's leagues ahead of where my Mac Pro quad core is. So it's a very interesting time for music producers, and I think that the power that is available to us is unprecedented, and it's a time for us to have no excuses. Like it's game time, really. It's been game time. We've had so many incredible tools out that enable us to do so much. There's not been an excuse for quite some time, but the new Apple stuff is very convincing. I'm excited about it. Um, I'm bullish on it. I think that it's going to have a major impact on the creative community and allow people to get a lot more work done and even get bigger projects done, and that's exciting. So, yeah, that's what I wanted to immediately talk about. I'm gonna get to this chat room now. Thank y'all for listening to me for a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like, I like to give some insight. I don't want to just read the comments. I want to give you some insights and give you some thoughts and some things to chew on, some things that I've been thinking and pondering on. So I hope you got some of that from some of the conversation. But I'm gonna get into the chat room now, man. So that's what the producer function is. It is a conversation, and I'm inviting y'all to ask questions and provide thoughts and feedback in the chat room. So I'm gonna get into here real quick and see what folks talking about. Let's see here. David Scott says, what would you recommend to a newbie getting started making beats? I like hardware, but I'm open to software controllers. Should I go MPC or Maschine? Please help. Blessings. All right. Well, I kind of got into some of that earlier. I'm glad I was saying what I was saying. So it depends what you have in your studio already. If you already have like a strong computer, if you have like a pretty recent Mac, or if you have a pretty powerful PC, I would recommend maybe looking into something like I think Maschine Micro is a great starting point if you are much more of a computer person. If you're looking to be more of a standalone hardware producer, I think you can't really beat this SP404 MK2 that's coming. It really depends. It depends a lot on what kind of music you're into, though. Let me be 100% honest, because this is something that I've explored for a long time, just trying to find out who I am as a musician as well. And I think even though we see a lot of people that make music use groove boxes within the urban music space, especially, I don't think every music producer needs a groove box, honestly. I think some music producers are better suited with either a DAW only, or some music producers need if they want to do hardware. I think some people are like more singer-songwriter types that need production tools, and I think for some of those people, workstations are still the best bet. And I've thought about this for a long time, but I think we try to push everyone into groove boxes unnecessarily. I think groove boxes are great devices, especially if you come from more of like the DJ background, or if you're coming from a place where you're an avid music listener and you want something that allows you to kind of like mesh the worlds between like listening to music and making music. Then the groove boxes, especially the sampling groove boxes like a Maschine, like a MPC, like an MPC1, if we're talking entry level, like a SP404. These are devices that help you to grab the music you're listening to and manipulate it. And also it allows you to make music from scratch if you want to do that. So I think it's great if you come from that background, but if you are like a keyboard player already, or if you are interested in like more like traditional instruments and things of that nature, I think workstation instruments are, still a good look for that type if you have to have hardware. Ultimately, software and a DAW for a singer-songwriter is the best bet at this point, and either on an iOS device or on a computer. But I think it depends on who you are as a musician, or who you believe you are right now, what you're into right now, what kind of music you want to make. Because I think there's a lot of people that kind of get nudged to buy samplers, even though they're not necessarily like heavily into sample-based music per se. Some people are more into like, just they want access to a lot of sounds, but they're not gonna go listen to a whole bunch of records or go through loop libraries and this and that, like looking for sounds. Some people just want to pull up a cool sound and make some music with it. So it really depends on what type of person you are, but I gave you a couple options, right? So SP404 MK2, as we just talked about, I think if you already have a computer and you're already comfortable with using a computer, Maschine Micro is a great starting point. If you already have a computer and you're comfortable, but you want some type of Groovebox device, I think if you're a Mac user, GarageBand, use GarageBand. Like, people sleep on GarageBand so much, and it's like it has so many pro level tools in there. It has some great sounds at this point. They just put a whole bunch of new, sample packs from different artists and, of different genres in there. It's a great production environment if you are just getting started. So I recommend that if you are a Mac user. If you're not a Mac user, then, there's, it's not the opportunities are there, but it's a little bit more of a DIY situation if you're a Windows user, unfortunately. But I think that's the nature and the culture of Windows. So if you're fully okay with the DIY culture of Windows, I think you have other options like some people are into Reaper. FL Studio is great. Some of you guys saw my short. I've been messing around with FL Studio a little bit as well still. That was actually my first music production software. That was like literally my first music production software was FL 20 years ago. So I'm trying to keep up with the stuff, understanding what it can do. But I think that you gotta tell me what type of musician you're into, or musician you are, or what kind of music you're into, and that can kind of give me a little bit more insight to give you a more relevant recommendation. But hopefully those are some ideas that help you. Yeah, let me know in the comments here. JP202 says, how do I connect my condenser mic to my sound box as well as my audio interface? What is your sound box? I'm not familiar with the sound box, so you have to enlighten me on that. I know a lot of music production tools, but I don't know every product out there. So give me a little bit more insight on what the sound box is. Generally speaking, though, if you have a condenser mic usually needs phantom power, so you need to connect it to something that has phantom power, and then from there, if whatever you're connecting that has phantom power has an output, you can send the output of that device to another device, such as a mixer or something else. But yeah, I'm not sure what the sound box is. All right. Let's see. Beast by Rossi said he had the 404 for like 3 months. I think go back and listen to what I was saying again earlier, and then try to use it differently, because I know Beast by Rossi, is a gearhead too. So it may not have connected with you just based on the level of gear you were already working with. If you had it, like if you recently incorporated it, you might have kind of had a different perspective. And a lot of people use an SP404 as kind of like a guitar pedal alternative. Essentially, it's like it's kind of like a desktop effects processor for a lot of people. Or I'd call it like a guitar pedal alternative. I think that's one way to use it, but I think if you're still listening to music a lot, like just incorporate it into your music listening experience, and then I think you'll get a different take on what the SP404 could be and how it could allow you to start having more fun with listening, but also creating music. I think it's part of like kind of a feedback loop, so to speak, with your music listening. And I think if you look at it from that perspective, you might have a much greater use for it than just what you may see certain people do within certain genres and whatnot. Be Fatal, what's going on with you? Good to see you. Iceman, um, let's see here. He says, for me, the most significant thing that happened over the last year was top dogs like Timbo and others interacting with young producers. No, I think that's a really good look, and I'm glad that people have kind of like moved away from this like ivory tower concept, so to speak, and now realizing that the internet is about connecting with people. That's always been my favorite thing on the internet is connecting with people. That's actually why I prefer doing live streams over doing like edited video content. I mean, I know you guys like watching edited video content to get a quick inspiration or quick information or whatever. But for me, the internet is about connecting with people, and I love being able to connect with people in real time. So I think it's great that people like Timbaland and other music producers are starting to see the value. Like, hey, I can really use this to connect with people that are fans of my music, and I can give them insights and whatnot. That's what the real power of the internet is. It's like really using it to attach yourself to the community and like really embrace the community that supports you. I think that's an important thing. So it's good to see people like Timbaland and other folks that are just really embracing it. There's some really great streams out there. So I'm glad to see that as well. Ty Baker, what's up? Zach M, yeah, I hear you on the M2. I'm not sure if I want to wait that long, but I definitely hear what you're saying on the M2. Daniel Coleman, I think, or Coleman. I'm not sure how to say that. I'm sorry. But yeah, that's the SE1X right there. So that's I had the SE1 back in the day. Like I probably have one of the earliest like SE1 videos on YouTube, honestly. But I had the SE1 back in the day. I was always a big fan of it, but I always wanted the SE1X when it came out. So I finally got one a couple years back now. So I'm happy with it. It's SE1, but expanded memory, expanded capabilities. Lovely machine, and I did incorporate SE1 into some of the sound work that I did for certain machine expansions back in the day. So it's a part of the creative process, but I've also tried to share some of the things that I like from that in some of the sound work that I've done over the years. So yes, sir. Let's see here. Daniel says, I'm on the same boat, still running Pro Tools 10 on iMac mid 2010. Yeah, I mean, this is to me, it's a great time. Like I couldn't see buying a computer when we were still kind of like in between with the Intel Macs and stuff, and we're kind of like at the end stage of Intel Macs. I was like, nah, there's no way I'm gonna buy a new Intel Mac and then they come out with the proprietary CPU and then phase out Intel, and then I'm kind of stuck with old technology, so to speak. It's not that it's like not usable, obviously, but I didn't want to be in that position. So I'm happy now that there is a pro version for the M1, and that's gonna open up some opportunities. So like I said, I'm gonna be watching to see how the new MacBook Pro is handling music production tasks, and I'll make a decision, and it'll be time to update. So I think it's a great great time though. Definitely now is time to start thinking about that transition. But I think last year was kind of like that if you get an Intel Mac, you might be kind of regretting that just because of the positioning and the end of life of that particular line of products. Let's see here. Iceman says M2 will implement ARM v9, and that will completely blow the lid off with fully scalable registers. It's gonna get interesting for sure. Like I said, though, I'm not sure if I want to wait that long, but we'll see. Zach M says, I've never owned a Mac, but the Mini M2 will be on my radar along with the Ryzen RDNA 2 APU and DDR5 memory. Yep, some great options out there right now. Ty Baker asks, what is my current setup since the last live? That's a good question. What did I have? Oh, last live was the last beat making video technically that I did, which was, sometimes I just, get into modes where I want to create just in different ways. And it's not always a permanent thing. It's just for inspiration. So that last video I did where it was like making beats with the MPC 4000 and the iPad, right? That was me kind of just exploring a workflow that I had talked about, but I just wanted to like really explore it and kind of maximize it a bit in the approach that I was using. So that was kind of more like a DAW-less beat making video or whatever. If you haven't watched it, check it out. It's on the page. But I'm not set up like that anymore. I'm not using, I still have my 4000, but I'm not really heavily using a 4000 right now. My main setup is still pretty heavily computer centric. I'm still using hardware. I mean, I have my Mofo X4 here. Motif is still right here. I guess the motif is not going anywhere. It's motif to the wheels fall off still, but that's my main MIDI controller right here. I'm actually using Logic a lot, but not necessarily I'm not necessarily doing a lot of MIDI sequencing in Logic. I do some, but I'm doing a lot more just direct straight to audio into Logic. And a lot of what I'm doing is actually using the Maschine as kind of like a hub. It's a beat machine, but it's also kind of a workstation instrument for me. And I like using it for that purpose because it's still one of the best tactile devices for me to be able to access all of the instruments that I commonly use in the software domain. That's why I like it. There's been a lot of fracturing with the music production community over the past couple years, and I think this whole like return back to standalone hardware is the fracturing, because I think, at one point in time we had kind of, moved to software only, DAW only basically, and then we elevated to integrated systems, which would be, things like the Maschine and the Push and the Renaissance and the old MPC Studio and that kind of stuff. Obviously, you guys know my background. I kind of transitioned to the integrated systems because that kind of was the best of both worlds for me, where it allowed me to actually use the power of a computer system, but not have to look at the computer. Like, this is my computer over here, and, I have another monitor right here, but, I'm mainly sitting here. This is where my keyboard and mouse are, and, I'm mainly looking at that screen when I'm on the computer. But realistically, when I'm going through sounds and stuff and I'm trying to get inspired, I don't want to be right here on the computer doing stuff. I kind of want to be just right here and not looking at the computer so I can just listen, right? And that's the part of the theory around getting into hardware. It's like you use your ears more, right? So I'm a proponent of that, but I like the access. I like access to certain instruments that are on the computer. And I think there's not really a full standalone device still that has all the instruments that I like, that, would allow me to just work standalone, right? So I I'm using the Maschine MK3, and I've been using that. That's kind of like my workstation instrument right now. Like you see me use different things like the iPad before, and I got into that because I wanted to find another concept around workstation instruments because. As I mentioned earlier, like for me, the workstation instrument is kind of like the domain that I really live in. I'm not so much like the heavy sampler. Not in the sense of I'm not the sample chop guy. I'm not the guy that needs all the sample slicing and all that stuff. That's not really the type of producer I am. I would say that a lot of my production concept is more akin to maybe a late 80s R&B producer. I think that's kind of like the best way to look at it. That's kind of what I'm most like. I'm not most like your traditional hip hop boom bap guy. I know I study the stuff. I know the stuff. I respect it. It's part of what helped me to discover music production is hip hop music. But I don't consider like my approach to be so much like boom bap or traditional hip hop producer. I would say I'm more close to a late 80s R&B producer, so to speak, as far as like the technology and the framework that I use to create music. So that's why the workstation concept has always kind of been like a general theme on this channel. If you haven't noticed that, like even though I had the the template for the Maschine and the MPC some years back, that was still for the workstation concept. It was the 16-part multi-timbral template for the Maschine and the MPC. So you could use Logic as a sound module or use Logic as basically a workstation instrument, so to speak. Somebody says, so you're more of a battle cat type guy. No, that's my big bro. But I would say, I've got my own thing that I'm into. Battle Cat is like one of my favorite producers. So I definitely learned a lot about like the hardware and the tools from kind of looking at stuff that he had, stuff that DJ Quick had, stuff that Rick Rock and a lot of other music producers, especially on the West Coast. I kind of fall into that class of music producers as far as like the gear. But I would say the approach ultimately is more like late 80s R&B focused. So that being said, a lot of the stuff that I've shown on this channel actually centers around workstation instrument concepts more so than groovebox concepts. We're just kind of using the groovebox as a means to an end, or it's part of the process, but I'm not so much centered around a lot of the, at least not the phrase sampling parts of it. But I do use Maschine an awful lot. So and I actually love the Maschine workflow that I have now because I'm actually using Maschine more and more now that I have Maschine connected to my so the way I'm set up is my Maschine is kind of like the sound module, but I'm sending the audio out from Maschine through a virtual output on the UAD console. And that goes into the DAW. So I can kind of like just use it as a keyboard with the keyboard hooked up, and I'm sending the audio directly out of Maschine, directly into Logic, and playing audio straight into Logic. And that's been a really, really nice way to work for me. I'm having fun with it. It is, yeah, it's just a great way to work. And somebody said, do I have the Maschine Plus? No, I don't have the Maschine Plus. I don't, we didn't talk about this, and I know y'all you didn't talk about the Maschine Plus on this channel, and we know you at Native Instruments. As I was talking about the fracturing, right? I saw the Force update too. I haven't got to that yet, but I saw it. It looks dope. I am more on the side of the integrated systems. We were talking about the fracturing and how everybody's kind of like on standalone right now. Standalone is not really it for me personally. It's really the integrated system. The integrated system is what allows me to do what I want to do. Because I want to use the computer. I'm not trying. I mean, the reality is I'm not producing. I always clown, but I'm not producing beats at the beach. That's I'm not doing that. Like it looks cool for YouTube, I guess, to make a beat at the beach, but that's not what I'm trying to do. Like I want to enjoy the beach, you know, get the breeze, get get the air, whatever, right, and enjoy it, and not be sitting in front of a beat machine or something else trying to make some content. I don't. That's not me. I want to enjoy that, and then like get some real feedback from like real life, and then come into my studio and take the inspiration I got from dealing with real life, and incorporate that into like the vibe that I'm feeling. But I don't know. I feel like the whole idea of like making beats out in public. If you're performing, that's one thing. I can respect that. If you're performing, you're a DJ, you're a live performer, a finger drummer, a musician that's, doing a performance, makes sense. I'm not any of those things. I make music in my studio primarily, and when I'm out, I want to be out and I want to enjoy what being out is, and I, I don't know. Some of y'all may have done this and be cool with it, but if I'm making music in public, it makes me paranoid, to be honest, because I got headphones on, I'm making beats, there's people walking around me, it's distracting. That's not for me. Not at all. Like, I'm gonna take my groove box to the coffee shop and make beats, and I'm doing all this, and folks is looking at you like, what is this dude doing? Because they can't hear, they don't have context for what you're feeling, and you look crazy. And the reality is, I don't like to be that engrossed in anything in public. Thank you. Somebody just said it. You might get robbed. Thank you. That's why I don't mess with it, because it's like, come on, like, what are we doing? You might get robbed. Like you so busy making beats and trying to like vibe out, and then somebody see you with $1,500 worth of equipment, and then you out of it because you got caught slipping. That's not for me. I'm not doing that. So anyhow, some people live in areas where they can have some isolation and it's all good. But I'm from Los Angeles, California, folks. You know what is notorious for in Los Angeles, California. I ain't even got to go there, and I'm not affiliated. So the thing is this: I am not making music out in public because I'm not trying to get caught slipping out here while I'm so heavily involved in this music. I can enjoy my music and not have to worry about that at all. I can enjoy what I'm doing outside and then come home and make the music, and I'm cool with that, and that works for me. So that's why I don't need a standalone. Especially I didn't need the Maschine Plus concept. It's not. The Maschine Mark III is perfect for what I do and how I make beats already. So that's been straight for me. So like in terms of the fracture in the community where it's like you got the DAWless and the standalone folks, like that's great. And I respect that. And obviously, this channel, I've done plenty of DAWless stuff. I'm not like anti-DAWless or anything like that. It don't matter to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, to me, DAWless is putting a label on something that don't really need a label. To be honest, I think it's just make music and enjoy it. Like, it don't matter what you use or what the methodology is. As long as the methodology inspires you and gets you to the place where you're making the music that you want to make, that's what's important, not the framework, like, oh, I'm DAWless, or I'm, integrated system, or I'm a DAW only person. Like, none of that really matters. So, yeah, my setup is really focused around like still Maschine MK3, You know, and whatever hardware sense I want to use, all of that is easily incorporated. And you know, I've got a couple little mixer hubs in here that are kind of feeding to my audio interface. I've kind of been going back and forth with that whole thing, like using mixers, but I see the value in it. I think that another gripe of mine, the industry kind of like sold us like moving away from things like mixers and you know analog because it's noisy and all that stuff, and then for whatever reason then the industry started to say, well, buy this software noise emulation tool. And it's just like, are you serious? So basically the noise that I was getting from my mixer is cool. It's just you wanted me to have a software version of it, right? So I hate that idea. It's like, let's be real. Like let's just add value and keep adding to what we can do. Like you don't have to resell me something that I already have just because you want me to adopt a different format. Like that's ridiculous. Like we don't have to use those type of tactics to get people to buy more stuff, because I think people can find the value in different tools if there's an actual value that's going to elevate their, you know, sonic shaping capabilities or just their music production in general. We don't have to like use like sneaky tactics to get me to sell one device for you to sell me basically the same device in a format that you have more control over, or you know whatever. Like that always bothered me about like the music production tool and manufacturing and even the software side of it. Like that's got to stop. We got to stop that. And I'm not for that. I've never been for that. But yeah, I got a couple mixers that help me to do certain things just quicker, because I'm just finding that like the mixer can just simplify things and also allow me to impart certain characteristics that are not easily obtained in the box. So yeah, that's where I'm at. So yeah, I think some of you guys that were following my stories have seen that I use the Electron model cycles. Love that device, actually. I've been using that for almost a year now, and getting into Electron really helped me to open my mind. One of my buddies in here actually let me borrow a Digitact some years back, but I wasn't ready for that because I was just in a different space. So I think when he let me borrow it at that time, it didn't connect with me. I was in a space where I was trying to integrate. I was trying to do a lot with the iPad, and I was also doing a lot of like MPC 4000 work and whatnot. But yeah, using the model cycles and the Electron sequencers opened my mind a lot in terms of like how to just create interesting sequences quickly, especially using the logic and the, you know, the probabilities and conditional triggers and all that, you know, because I do have an engineering background, computer engineering background, so a lot of that that started to speak to me once I started to slow down and say, hey, you can quickly make an 8-bar loop by using some logic instead of like programming something by hand the whole way through, if you want to do something like, you know, using step sequencing. And, you know, I'm not a purist. Like I said, I like all tools, and I think all tools have their merit. So, you know, certain things are cool for me to step sequence, and using the Electron and the probabilities and the conditional triggers definitely is inspiring, because just to be able to start with basically 16 steps and make that sound like 8 bars just through conditionals is amazing to me. I think that's a concept that I'd like to see in a lot of other devices in the future. I think conditionals are definitely a wave, and you know, if you've been mainly an MPC user and haven't had your opportunity to mess with an Electron, I'm not endorsed by Electron at all. You know, it is what it is. But I think if you were ever interested, they got some very cheap devices now that you can get at least your foot in the door with the Electron stuff. And I actually think that probably the model line is laid out probably better, just in terms of like one-to-one controls than any of their other devices for that matter. So even, you know, compared to a Digitact or, you know, some of the, you know, the Octatracks and all that stuff where it's a lot more menu driven and whatnot, the model line is much more like one knob, one parameter type of situation. There is some menu diving, but I think they're easy devices to learn about the Electron way of doing things. And yeah, I've been inspired by that. So I've been using it. I haven't quite found exactly the pocket that I want to use it in yet, especially with the cycles, because it's, you know, it's an FM synth, but it's inspiring just to use it, and it can sound really, really nice. And, you know, I'm very much getting deeper into incorporating a lot more FM synthesis into what I'm doing. Go figure, you know, given the name and whatnot. But yeah, that's the long answer to what I'm using right now. Let's see here. Felt Flip Song said, "What's up, fam? Good to see you again. Do you think NI jumped the gun on the Maschine Plus?" I don't think they jumped the gun. I think they don't. I don't think they have the right messaging with it. To be honest, I think that it's. I think they're kind of focused on one specific use case, and I think there's a lot of other use cases that should be addressed. And I think once you start getting into looking at the Maschine Plus as a workstation instrument or workstation alternative, I think it starts to make a lot more sense, because it has more of the workstation instrument, like workstation keyboard type of concept, but it's not the form factor of a workstation keyboard. So I think if they repackaged it as that, it would make a lot of sense. And I've always felt like if there was a Maschine keyboard version, it would make sense, because like the way that the Maschine sampler is laid out is definitely more akin to a keyboard sampler. You know, each pad, you know, basically spreads out across the key range. It's not like, you know, one sample per key or whatever. So I've always felt like if they ever did a Maschine keyboard, it would make a lot more sense logically for people, and people would kind of understand what the Maschine sampler workflow really is. I think because they're trying to push it into the Akai MPC format, it gets confusing, and I think that's the real problem. I mean, obviously there's going to be pros and cons to every system, but I think for me that's the real issue, is that it's kind of being pushed at that too much. And I look at it as it's a workstation instrument. It's a $1,500 workstation instrument, and if you compare that now to similar workstation instruments, like what do they have out there? The Chrome, the Juno, what does Yamaha have? Like the Montage and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's priced decently for that, but I don't think it's priced decently compared to MPC-1, right? I don't think it's priced decently compared to even the Force at this point. I think it's not priced well against those. If you're looking at it from that perspective, I think to me the Maschine is more like a workstation keyboard concept, and that's how I use it. So that's how I've kind of like conceptually accepted it. And that's why it has a place for me, as opposed to, you know, me trying to compare it to an MPC, which has a very specific MIDI track-based sequencer workflow. That's not what the Maschine Plus is, or the Maschine in general. So let's see here. Iceman says, get an ASR 10. You know, I always wanted an ASR 10. I think now I probably wouldn't get it, but I think you were saying that to the guy that was starting off. I don't know. For me, ASR 10 now, that's a lot of hassle for someone that's just getting started. It could be a great tool to learn about like sampling and whatnot, but I think it not having screens and having to deal with the different protocols for sample storage and or having to update it so that it can have a more modern way of storing samples and whatnot. I don't think it's a good thing for someone to start in 2021. I think it would have been a great thing for someone to start in 2001. But yeah, it's too much out there right now that's just way more capable and just convenient. And I think it's important to just get people. I think it's important for people to get results and have a good time using something quickly. The more, the faster you can get to having fun, the more it becomes like a sticky habit that you will come back to. I think if you get discouraged because it's too complex or it's just like frustrating to use, it's slow, it's cumbersome to get your music from here to there, all of that stuff make you quit. And I don't think that that's what we should be facilitating. I think as you learn more about music production and whatnot, you should start to investigate other tools and see, understand the history. And that's been part of my journey. It's like, I started music production in 2000, but I studied a lot of the old stuff because I just respect the culture. I respect the process. I respect the technology, and I want to understand where we've been and why we are in the places that we're at now with certain hardware and whatnot. So that's been an important part of my development is to explore different hardware and like really dig into it and understand it. So, but yeah, ASR 10 now, I don't know. Not for me. I think if you're like more of a seasoned producer or you've done a little bit of work, I think that's a great place for you to like expand your thoughts on sampling and get some new perspectives and ideas for sure. Zach M said can't go wrong with the with 270 for the MPC Studio 2 for entry level. Yeah, that's another great option. Like I said, the Maschine Micro, but yeah, I forgot about that one. The MPC Studio 2, another great option. If you don't need the big screen and all the standalone stuff, like yeah, those are great options. It just depends on what type of. I think it the choice between Maschine and the MPC kind of has to do with like what type of producer you are technically. I think any producer can use anything, but I think that the MPC leans more heavily today towards like modern hip hop and old school hip hop. And I think Maschine is kind of more like a electronic music producer thing. It's not so heavily slanted towards hip hop. I think, of course the Maschine expansions have helped it to communicate hip hop ideas, but I don't necessarily think that the lineage of it is directly related to hip hop at all. So obviously it coming from a German company and all that stuff will affect some of the ideas and perspectives that are, implemented in the sequencer and also the instrument sounds and the choices and whatnot. So just depends on what type of producer you are ultimately is, the decision between saying the Akai or the Maschine. Let's see here. I appreciate the love everybody giving me. I see it. I appreciate y'all. And I had to take some time off. I just had to. It's a whole bunch of stuff going on. Y'all know that. So understand that that's part of my process. Hey, what's going on, Vicky? Good to see you. I appreciate you. Salute to you as well. Vicky Cases. Oh my gosh. Fire producer. Please follow her on social media. I've done some work with her on sounds.com. We got some new projects coming soon. Can't wait to share that with y'all. But Vicky is fire. Yeah, y'all need to follow her. If y'all ain't following her, I don't know. I just don't know how you're discovering music at this point. But please follow her on social. Um, Ishman, I see that. I see what you're talking about with my ebook. I took the ebook off the site a couple years ago, and I apologize that you tried to buy it and it's not accessible. Please email me when you get a chance, and I will get that to you. The reason I took it off is because I plan on making a follow-up version to it with some updated ideas and some. It'd be a version 2, but I took it off the site for now. I feel like it was getting a little bit behind in some of the ideas that it was presenting. But shoot me an email. I can send you the old version free of charge. So when you get a chance, just hit me up. Hit me up on the contact on my site, and I got you. Let's see here. Somebody said prefer Maschine over new style and PC workflow. I just answered that, so we good. Uncle Dan, what's up with you? Let's see here. KD, what's going on with you? David Turner, we're talking about the getting robbed. Yeah, guys, I that's just this whole like making beats at the beach and the coffee shop. No, that is not for me, guys. That you won't see me doing that. That's that's not the plan out here. Sorry. Yeah, let's see here. Felt Flipsong says, yeah, you're right. I agree. They need to make a keyboard workstation. Yeah, I think that would be a game changer as far as just the way that they could communicate it. And I think just to see people use it differently, like being able to use it on stage, to run your show as a musical director, or that sort of, and just the way that the sampler. I feel like the sampler is underutilized as like a keyboard sampler. I try to at least inspire some of that with my approach on the True School library to start off as like a expansion concept, because you guys got to understand, when I started working on Maschine expansions, I was at the ground level working on like conceptual framework for how to leverage Maschine as a content device or content system. So I feel like the Maschine expansions, the early ones especially, were very experimental in the sense that I was trying a lot of different concepts around it. But I think one of the framework that I brought was this whole using Maschine to deliver keyboard samples, or using it as a keyboard sampler. So True School does have a lot of that keyboard sampler approach, as opposed to a lot more of the loop concepts that you would find in the other project that I worked on, which was Conant Gardens with Amp Fiddler. So like the Conant Gardens is that's the basically the Dilla inspired library, right? But it's with Amp Fiddler, who is known as a mentor to Jay Dilla, and we incorporated a lot more loops into that expansion concept. So it's definitely a different take on how you could use the Maschine as a sampler. But ultimately, I think that the Maschine is still underutilized as a keyboard sampler. We should be seeing a lot more keyboard instruments and libraries that are produced that have that type of approach to it. I'd like to see that. But yeah, that's just my thoughts on why I see it as a workstation instrument. I've actually seen it as a workstation instrument for quite some time. David Turner, I appreciate you. Thank you. I appreciate you. Let's see here. Okay, Ishman Garcia says, the reason I never got inspired by Maschine is because it seems like they pitted against the MPC and that's it. I already have a few of them, so Workstation would be great in 2021, 2022. The reality is, if you have a machine already, it's already a workstation. I mean, they can put it in that form factor to like make that more apparent, when I think they should, but it technically already is a workstation. You already could use Maschine, you can pull up an instrument in Maschine, and then, you can start playing. These are instruments in the, what is this? That's that is FM8. And see, that's why I like the Maschine, because I can be here, like not looking at the computer. I'm here, and I got FM8 right there, and then I can switch to a keyboard real quick. Right, I can get to a keyboard instrument, or I can go to another group, and then where am I at now? Bass, another instrument, another track, some lead sound. Like it's a workstation. I'm using it like a 16-part multi-timbral workstation already. That's a instrument from Korg Darwin, or the M1. Another track is a Pompeii from Korg. I got the Korg clavinet on here. So, it's a workstation already. And I mean, the way I'm using it, the way it's positioned, it's already like, like I can use it like that and have the experience of working on a workstation without having to buy another big keyboard. I think if you already have a keyboard and all this stuff, then yeah, it doesn't make sense for you to have to keep buying a big workstation keyboard just to have access to instrument sounds and whatnot. And also, I just think that just the tactility of it, just being able to like pull up the instrument here, but also being able to affect the instrument and change the parameters and whatnot, and not have to be on this computer, it makes a difference for me. So, I use, let me see, I'll pull up something that I did using actually that sound set that I just was playing. Let me know if y'all can hear this. I'll play a little piece of it real quick. Just some music I wrote like a couple days ago, but using this workflow of like using the Maschine as a workstation, taking the audio out of Maschine in real time, not exporting a track or anything, but sending the audio out real time using the UAD virtual tracks, porting that directly into Logic, and recording that as audio tracks. So, that's I did that on this track, and yeah, check this out. It's just an idea, nothing crazy. That was using that workflow. You know what I'm saying? Appreciate y'all for sure. Um, yeah, using that workflow, like I said, using the Maschine as a workstation instrument, incorporating a couple of hardware sounds into it. Definitely like that that track incorporated. Actually, y'all gonna laugh at me. That actually incorporated the motif. To be honest, so check this out. Like, I'm gonna play you back some of like the motif sounds, just so you can see. Like, I use everything. Like, yeah, I'm not, you know. So this is motif sounds here. Yeah, this is all motif sound. So that's all motif sounds. And then let's see, the Mofo X4. And that's going through some effects from guitar rig and whatnot, but it's all still Mofo X4. Yeah, so that's that, and then some of the like the other sounds that I was using from the Maschine as a sound module. So this is the other side of it. So FM8 on the bass, Korg, Korg Gadget for like that little keyboard sound, and then yeah, Korg Gadget for the synth sound as well. And I just recorded those directly in to Logic from Maschine and Standalone, not Maschine as a plugin, Maschine and Standalone. So what's happening is the sound actually comes through the virtual channel into an audio track into Logic. So still kind of playing with that same concept that we talked about with the original Logic template of just using Maschine and Standalone with Logic and Standalone. I'm still doing that, but I've kind of just gone straight to like, I'm using a lot more audio now. And then, yeah, from there, I mean, I do there's a little bit of MIDI in there from like just direct MIDI into Logic, but a lot of that is just like, yeah, straight audio workflow. And then, some stuff from the model cycles. So this track kind of incorporates a lot of everything that I'm using. So here's some model cycle stuff that I did. So that's all working together with this. So those are model cycles, like they're processed, using different processors on the UAD suite or whatever, but those are like drums that I've created using the model cycles. Right, so then, it all works together and get you there. So yeah, hopefully that kind of gives you at least a little breakdown of like how I'm working these days and what I'm doing. But yeah, man, like I'm having fun. I'm enjoying where we're at as far as like music production tools and capabilities are concerned, man. It's like no excuses. I can't make no excuses. The only thing to do now is just to stay inspired, man. And I try to stay inspired by listening to music, having interactions with people, and really, I'm a spiritual guy. Y'all know that. It's music comes from the Most High for me. So, it's about staying close to the Most High. And that's the most important part for me. Without that, I'm not gonna have no music. So, um, I try to keep myself connected to the Most High, and that's where the music flows from to me. So, that's what it is. Let's see, man. What else we got going in this chat room? Ishmael says, I feel you on using everything and anything. A lot of producers get caught up in just dismissing dated sounds and forget to be creative and give them old sounds new life. That's 100. I 100% agree with that. Yeah, I don't want to make this video too long, but I wanted to tap in with y'all. You know what I'm saying? It's been a minute since we chatted, and I really appreciate you guys coming out to just hang out with me for a couple hours, man. It's always fun to just share ideas and thoughts and stuff. And I can hang out for a little bit longer if y'all got more questions, or I can wrap it up, man. We can just keep it pushing. But I appreciate y'all for real, and just make sure y'all continue to reach out. Even if I don't post anything, as long as I'm still alive, man, I'm still here. It's just like I'm just really doing life. I'm not. Even though you guys probably, some of y'all have seen me on this platform for a long time, I'm not a YouTube content creator. I don't look at myself that way. I'm about the community. I've always just tried to share ideas and stuff with the community. That's always been what the Ultra S channel has been about, just sharing ideas and thoughts. I'm not a content creator. I'm not gonna put myself on a treadmill and say, yeah, every Tuesday at blah blah blah. That's not gonna work for me, because I'm too much of just a creative, and when I say creative, I'm not a content creator. I'm just a creative in general, and I gotta do other things, and I can't be locked into just making content for one platform or for one framework. That will never work for me. So I appreciate y'all that hang out and stick around and are about the community, because that's what I'm about. I may make a Discord though. I think I could see a value in a Discord so we can continue conversation. If any of y'all is up on Discord, or y'all would be down with me creating a Discord so we can just stay in contact and not necessarily be relying on YouTube for community, like, let me know. I'm cool with a Discord or a Telegram. Let me know what that's gonna be the call to action on this video. Let me know if y'all are down for like a chat, a ongoing chat. Let me know what platform you prefer. Do you prefer Discord or Telegram, or let me know. But would love to continue to stay in contact even outside of just the YouTube platform. But yeah, man, I appreciate y'all. I'm probably gonna wrap it up. I'm answer the one last question somebody asked about the musicianship part of it. It's just it's practice, and it's just time ultimately, and just being patient with yourself. I'm not a virtuoso keyboard player. I'm self-taught. And it's just being patient and being humble about what you do, so that you can find places to continue to expand yourself and learn and listen to music and also listen to music outside of the music that you plan to make, because I think that helps, for you to really get inspired by people at a very high level of musicianship in other areas. Like, I listen to a lot of jazz, a lot of gospel. Jazz and gospel to me is where the ultimate of musicianship is. So I listen to a lot of that just to get inspired, to keep myself in check and say, okay, you got a ways to go, brother. like you cool, but like you ain't that. You not on that. So keep working. So always it's important to keep yourself in check and just stay humble, but keep working and be patient with yourself. So on that note, I really appreciate y'all. Make sure y'all subscribe to this channel if you haven't already done so. Also, you can visit my website www.altruist.com. I have a lot more information up there. Like I said, the call to action on this video. Let me know which if you want to continue to have the chats with me outside of the YouTube platform. Let me know. Discord, Telegram, or tell me what your preferred platform is. Put that in the comment box, and we're gonna get it in. All right. So until next time, I want to tell y'all peace, God bless, and yeah, man, we gonna do this again real soon. Let me figure out how to get out of here now. All right, peace.